Hey everybody, welcome back to the Combat Chain. I'm your host Patrick Shaw, and today is a very special day because we got people all over the place. First, we have my intrepid co-host who is in a very special spot. Adam, where are you?
I am in the inferno known as Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
I can't stress how hot it is here. It is so hot.
I know you gotta be used to like parkas, and now you come down to just hell on earth.
Yeah, I live in the northernmost city, the northernmost major city in Canada. So, yeah, it's hot.
You only see the sun 3 months out of the year, and now you're in the sun.
It's like
definitely.
The sun's hot, the pavement's hot, the wind's hot, everything's hot. Like it's gross.
Did you bring your bathing suit?
I did.
That's good. I hear the pools are pretty fun over there. I have no idea, but I hear it's fun to be at.
We'll see.
But Adam is in La. Go ahead.
Yes. I don't remember what I was going to say. Yes, I am in Las Vegas for the in lieu of the Uprising premiere this weekend and the Team Blitz calling.
Right, the world premiere.
But not only am I here in Las Vegas, we also have a special guest here with us, all the way from New Jersey, Tommy.
Tommy Fresh of the Fresh and Buzz podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Welcome, me, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. No, you can do your own intro.
I'm so used to welcoming people that sometimes I have to welcome myself. I feel like, but I am just kind of scared because I am headed to Las Vegas tomorrow, and I do not want to deal with the heat. I don't even know what I should pack, but I'm happy to be here with you guys. This is exciting.
Excellent. We're happy to have you here. I'll tell you what, usually when a guest comes on, I force them to give me their origin story, but you have been all over the place the last couple of weeks. Why don't you give me a little rundown of the content you've been on lately, because you have been busy.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't planned out like that. It kind of just everybody asked at the same time, and I don't say no. Because why would I? I love when people come on to my stuff. I'm more
here
than happy.
You are proving that right now.
And here I am with you guys. I love, it's nice to be on somebody else's thing because I get to get here, show up, you guys talk to me. It's nice. But yeah, I guess. Oh, geez. Leading into Jersey, a little bit. We had I was on a video with Flake on his channel about the fourth hero, which we now know is not true, unfortunately. And then afterwards, Flesh and Pod had a nice round table. The folks over there, Logan, Jordan, Abby couldn't make it onto it, unfortunately, but Logan and Jordan welcomed myself, Elaine, Flake, and I know I'm forgetting one person, and I feel terrible to do that right now. It's been a lot of stuff lately, and then I was on a
whirlwind.
Delio Pera's channel with Flake as well, and then I'm always doing my own stuff too. I think that's been it. Now I'm on here, and it's a lot of fun, and I've had both of you guys on my podcast, and I'm happy to be on this one. Oh, I was also on Attack Action podcast.
That's right. You were. I thought you have been busy because you had it has been all over the place. If I typed in Tommy Fresh right now on the YouTube, so many things come up. Ooh, especially cars. Let's see what happens if I type in Tommy Fresh Flesh and Blood. Look, you are all over the place.
Look at me.
Paranine. You are. Hey, look, you're breaking out. You are the Flesh and Blood content breakout star here. We are, we're obviously very familiar with the Fresh and Buzz podcast, being on it, and we are in fact buds. we're on the Discord. In fact, we probably hang out in that Discord more than we hang out on our own Discord, to our detriment. We should probably stop hanging out with you guys so much, but it's so much fun. One of the best things about New Jersey was coming down and actually, of course, Adam, meeting you in person was, fantastic.
So cool.
And once, and like me and Adam and Andrew and the rest of the Canadian gang there, it was just like super, super comfortable. And then meeting you, Tommy, and the rest of the gang there, the Caleb, John, and all those guys, it just felt like, we'd been interacting so much online, and then getting to see everybody in person and like not missing a stride. That felt like really good, and it made me feel good leaving that that event, feeling kind of renewed. And when we see it now, I feel like we're all like, with the circle's like solidified. I feel like we're doing stuff, and not only on the content side, but we're jamming games. People are getting ready for stuff, and it's a productive group, and the buds keep growing. You're the list of buds is ever widening. So it's a tantamount. We're gonna cut this.
It's something, I'll tell you that, Pat. And
I could see you trying to save it, and
yeah.
It was. I will say that it was really cool because I was hanging out with you, right? And I was like, "Have you seen in Jersey?" I was hanging out with you, and I was like, "Have you seen Adam yet?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "Have you met Adam yet in person?" Yeah. And he's like, "No." He's like, I was like, "Do you want to go find him?" And we started walking. We saw your orange beanie. And
this giant statue in an orange hat. And I'm like, is that him? He does not present that tall on webcam. He just seems much more of an average height guy. And going up to him, it's like, hey, Adam? And it's it's me. It's like, all right. And it's like twins. It's like I'm Danny DeVito giving Arnold a big hug.
But that was really cool to witness, though, because like, oh yeah, I was meeting a lot of people for the first time, but it is what it is. I don't talk to them every week on the podcast. You guys talk every week. I was like, that's just cool. But it was neat to see.
Yeah, it was very cool. And then of course all of us are together, and then a big shadow looms over the convention center, and I look up and Drew Cordell is there as well. And that man, for as tall as Adam is, Drew is an enormous Drew individual.
Is a giant.
But he is so nice. He is just this nice, gentle, pet your head kind of guy.
Yeah, everybody's just tall, I found out. In New Jersey.
Yeah,
like,
right?
I don't know if I like this, but the rest of it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just a couple of average height guys, just like hobbits in the war, just looking up at everybody. Hey, cool, all right. And everyone. I come from a Magic background, and I love Magic for a long time, but I can say that the Flesh and Blood community is the handsomest, I think, trading card community that I think I've run into. There's just people take care of themselves. It's just I don't know what it is about the game. It's the discipline required to play at a high level, I guess. Runs through.
It's the lack of an online client, I think. It's
yeah. Right. I have to be in front of people. I'm gonna shower today.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to just get right into some news and stuff. And Tommy, you're coming along for the ride here. So we're just gonna do this. We're gonna get on the roller coaster and go.
What's on the newsreel, Pat?
So we're going to do this in order. The most newsworthy items outside of Uprising spoilers are major events announced by Legend Story Studio, and we have 2 calling events coming up. One is the Calling Utrecht. That is on the 22nd through the 24th of July, and that is taking place in Utrecht, Netherlands. And it is a 3-day event that is featuring a special invitation-only European Champions battle on Friday, and that is open to any European player who made the top 8 of a Calling, a 2021 Nationals, or 2022 Battle Hardened event. On top of that is going to be the Calling main event will provide players with a chance to warm up for Lille, featuring 2 days of hybrid play across Uprising Draft and Classic Constructed. And Sunday will be the Battle Hardened. The other Calling announced is the Calling Singapore. That is taking place on the 20th and 21st of August. That is at the Singapore Expo Center Convention and Exhibition Hall. Saturday and Sundays featuring the Calling main event with the Uprising Draft and Classic Constructed, as well as Uprising Draft side events. And Sunday is featuring a Classic Constructed Battle Hardened event, as well as Uprising Sealed Deck side events. So those 2 were recently announced, and I think along with those, there was a little bit of angst with the, call it, short notice that some of these events are being announced on. What do you guys think about this? The timeline that has been presented with us as of yet, and going into the unknown.
Yeah, it's a valid concern with what's been going on in terms of announcements for these events. I get that there's a lot of moving parts, though. Especially over in Europe, I feel like Europe has to be a little bit harder to get things scheduled. And things might be a little bit stricter over there still. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think it's a valid concern amongst all the high-profile players that like to go to all of these things, or just grinders in general, or just scrubs like me who I like to go to these, and it can be really tough. And some long-term notice would be helpful, but also this is a pretty crazy year for Flesh and Blood, and I think that hopefully it ends up being somewhat of a blueprint for them to follow in years to come. Like, hey, listen, not in terms of like announcing these things last minute, but also more in terms of like, this is when these things will be going forward. This is when you can kind of expect them. But I get it. It's tough. It's tough. Like traveling is tough. Gas is crazy. Flights are crazy. So it's when things are last minute, it can be hard.
Now, did you? Now, both of you are going to Vegas. How hard or easy was that decision coming off of New Jersey? Because I feel like that was like, it was like New Jersey Pro Tour happens, and then it's like, surprise, world premiere, Vegas, 2 weeks, be there. Like, how does that come around? And obviously, Adam, you've decided to, you're there, so obviously you're doing that. And Tommy, you're packing up tonight and heading out for this weekend. But how much did that decision weigh on the rest of your plans in 2022 in terms of the events and things of that nature?
Well, for me, it was very last minute. I wanted to go badly, but money is something that I have to consider. And also lucky for me, I was headed to a ProQuest like a couple weeks ago, and the day before I was like going through some old stuff, and I found like a bunch of Magic cards, and I was like, oh, maybe they buy singles at this store. They do. And I was able to basically sell enough cards to like pay for the flight, and then it was kind of easy to figure out the everything else from there. And also I met someone there that just wanted the promos from the event, so they kind of just gave me some money for the promos ahead of time. So it all worked out, but if none of that happened, I there's no way I'd be going. I would need a lot more lead time.
And yeah. I'm in the same boat. This came down. This decision wasn't made until I was in Jersey, actually, and the decision actually arose from, there's this recurring conversation that me and a few Fab players have had, where it's, we've been having this conversation about like, what does it take to win, let's say top 8 a calling or a pro tour or any big major event. And obviously it takes a lot of skill, a lot of hard work. No one's gonna downplay that, but another factor is you have to get lucky. Being that this is a trading card game, first and foremost, there's RNG behind the game, and you can't choose when you get lucky, but you can give yourself as many opportunities as possible to get lucky. Out of that, I kind of came to this realization that, I can't, unfortunately, if I want to take this game seriously, I can't just rely on 1 or 2 events per year or something like that. Like, I need to be giving myself as many opportunities as possible. And so that was kind of where I had this honest conversation with Brooklyn, where I was like, I want to take this game seriously, and I want to give myself those opportunities. And we agreed that, Vegas is probably something that needs to happen then. And we found a way to make it work.
Right off the tail of World Premiere and then the Uprising release in July, we have Road to Nationals. It's already happening. It doesn't stop. It just keeps going. I'm feeling like they're not doing secret lairs. They're doing like full on events, but it's giving me the same like palpitations. It's like, oh, there's so many of these happening. There is, so on one side, right, I'm super excited about Road to Nationals. Road to Nationals are going to be featuring both Classic Constructed and Uprising Draft as featured formats for each individual Road to Nationals. You look at your local event locator to see which one is which. So they'll have either a Classic Constructed or a draft format for that Road to Nationals. But that is the month of July, and we just got done. Feels like we did just get done with 2 full seasons worth of ProQuests, right? We grinded all for ProQuest 1, got to Calling Indianapolis, hopped right on to ProQuest 2, Pro Tour New Jersey. Now we're getting ready for Lille. We have the Calling Vegas happening, and now we're going right into Road to Nationals. Are you planning on attending and playing in any Road to Nationals? Have you booked those days yet?
Personally, I haven't, but I plan on it. I have to figure out what's going on in July for me. Personally, I do travel a little bit in July, but I am stoked for it because there's going to be draft Road to Nats, and that's just like a dream come true. As much as I love Classic Constructed, and I'm sure because some of them can be Classic Constructed, if there are some that I could only make that are Classic Constructed, I'm still jamming them, but that's high level limited play is just what this game is missing right now. So like it's so awesome. And you mentioned that the Calling Utrecht is split format. And that has to be, that's the first Calling that's split format so far, as far to my knowledge, and that's
that'll
really
be the first
exciting.
high level split event, so it will get you ready. So you Pro Tour bound players, if you want to get your reps in, get to Utrecht first.
Well, Nationals last year was split format as well.
Yeah, it was. But it's so cool, and that alone is so exciting because it felt like, until I heard that basically right now from you, that the only chance to play a split format tournament was to qualify for something. And if Utrecht is any kind of like indicator of what we'll have in the future, I think that's pretty awesome. And it's awesome that we got it for the road to Nats as well.
Adam, what about you? You in on any Road to Nationals yet?
Yeah, I've noticed
it's a lot.
It is a lot. It's not the rate of the events that there's no. I'm fine with, like, it is like I agree that it's very fast paced and there's a lot to take in, but I personally am fine with it. I like to be busy. I like to have things on the go, so that part's fine for me. One thing I've noticed for myself though is, like, now with starting to compete in these higher level events, like, having played in a pro tour now and such, the ProQuest and RTNs aren't as, I just noticed, like, for one reason or another, like this ProQuest Season 2 felt so much more lax to me than ProQuest Season 1 did. And it was the same thing, like when Skirmish Season 1 got announced and we didn't have anything else to go off of at the time, that was the highest level of Flesh and Blood people were playing, and people were clamoring to play in Season 1 of Skirmish. And then, we got our first RTN season, and skirmishes became a lot less impactful, and then we started getting callings, and RTN started seeming less impactful. And I'm noticing for myself, at least, like, that drive that, like, I got to get to the RTNs isn't there this time around. Like, I'll still, like, I think they're going to be back-to-back weekends here for my local RTN, so it's going to be easy for me to attend, but I don't feel that same pressure to get there as I've felt in previous seasons of semi-competitive events.
Do you think that has anything to do with the physical prize support at these for ProQuest Season 2?
Not for me. I know for a lot of people, yes. A lot of people I had conversations with were just because the EV wasn't there for Season 2. Like, you top 8, you get a pack of tunic sleeves. Cool. Like, it was really first place or bust. And I get that they can't necessarily, like, because when you look at going into Season 2 of ProQuest, like, if they were going to do Cold Foil Heroes again, well, it would have been the same pool of Cold Foil Heroes that we saw in ProQuest Season 1. And then on top of that, some of those heroes we've seen in RTN Season 1. And there's this question that if they keep handing out the same prize over and over again, does it devalue the prize as well? And I think that was part of where probably the decision to go to sleeves instead came from. But the sleeves was a missed mark. Like, that, it just wasn't enough.
Could be a happy medium somewhere between,
like, maybe top 4 gets a cold foil or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But top 8 getting just
give me a playmat at least. Give me the playmat. You could put whatever you want on there as a play. You can just put it, just be white with just text that says, "I played in the RTN," and it still means a little something going on there. The sleeves are a little a little sus.
I do gotta wonder, though, just in general, to, like, since we're on the topic, like, is the rate of events, like, we're seeing so many events right now, is that rate sustainable? Like, can they keep pumping out events at the rate they are right now? I don't know.
It's hard to say for me, because it feels like they're trying to make up for the fact that the Armory hasn't necessarily become the Friday Night Magic that it's probably intended to be, right? It's and I know that online armories are still a thing and people play in them. I have to imagine at this point LSS wants that to go away, as things open up and everything. They want people to play in the store. I think that is truly the end goal for them, and the best way they can get people in stores playing is these events right now. And I also think they're playing a little bit of a catch up, from, I mean, if you remember, I feel the crowdedness of all these events just as much as everybody else. But I also remember, like, after Nationals to, like, all the way to the Farewell to Wraith event, where we had, like, nothing, it felt like. And I'd rather not go back to that. And, I will take this right now. However, it does need to be spaced out a bit. I don't know if maybe the ProQuest seasons being a little more spread out might help. And then also kind of figuring out when they want their Pro Tours. I don't think
I think that'll be a big factor.
Yeah, New Jersey needed to be earlier in the year, but for whatever reason, everything's still crazy, so it had to be then. And it also, they also need to be in tandem with product releases, I think.
I think so. I think that should be right. Pro Tours need to be aligned with product releases after the release by a short amount. I think that's been the ideal setting. Release the product, let the Pro Tour event set the meta, and then go from there. I think if they are trying to emulate and take over the old idealized Magic the Gathering Pro Tour model, I think they also need to grab that aspect of it as well. I do know there is a bit of, we talk about the crowding of the events, and there is, I do think that there's some merit in the choice. So from my personal experience, I'm not going to France, right? So ProQuest season for me is a nothing burger. I wasn't doing any ProQuest. None of them actually lined up with the days that I would be available on anyways. So I was, dad and work and all that stuff. I can only, my days are Sundays, right? So ProQuest 1 had a bunch of Sunday events, and it turns out most of the Flesh and Blood player base hates Sundays. So Quest 2 moved a bunch over to Saturdays, which is great for 99% of the guys, but not for this one over here, unfortunately. So I knew that ahead of time, right? So I've called June like my month off, right? I've decided to do some, if you looked on the channel, hashtag Samers plug, if you guys go into the Combat Chain YouTube video, you might see a lot more videos with me because I got more free time because I'm not jamming games for a ProQuest. I was looking forward to Road to National season because I have my time off and then I can get ready. I was going to use June to play test and get into Road to Nationals. And we'll get into some of the nitty gritty here, but I'm a constructed guy. So I had basically 2 options for constructed RTNs. And one of them that I was going to just moved from a Saturday that I actually had open to a Sunday that I did not. And so I if any, I will have one Road to Nationals this season. So then I'll be I'm basically waiting for skirmish season after that. But I think a lot of people will have to make those kind of decisions. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What formats do you want to play? And maybe you're not jamming. Some of these guys are I don't know how people do it. They're jamming, they're getting in 8 ProQuests, in a season. I mean, people love the game, but the logistics of doing that is just mind-blowing to me.
I think geography plays a factor there. Some people have access to more ProQuests and they're within a few hour drive of them. But then also, like, I could comment on, if I had 8 ProQuests, to attend, I would be at all 8 of them because I am a degenerate without kids and I have that kind of free time.
Well, Pat, I'm glad you brought up the fact that you are a constructed guy, right? I do want to address that. I think that is going to change. Because I remember in New Jersey, I convinced you to play a draft. I was like, come on, let's just do one. Let's do an on-demand draft. And it was fun. Was it not fun?
It was fun. And we'll definitely get into it a little bit. It's not the worst thing. Am I prepared to compete at a world-class level and compete for a spot via a draft experience? No, I do not think I will be making a nationals level competition through my draft. But maybe, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Well, nobody's prepared for this draft format yet. Nobody's got to practice. So you're on the ground floor, my friend.
We're all in the same boat.
Everybody's ELO's at 1,500 in this realm.
Yeah.
Because mine definitely is. I'll tell you that. That's one of the craziest things out of New Jersey is I got rated. I'm at. I showed my rating. I have 8 rated wins. I showed my rating to the Discord testing server, and one of the guys goes, "Oh yeah, my rating bombed too." That's just what it is, guy. That's just what it is. That's just me right there. Here's me looking at you with my rating. Sorry, you're not gonna get bumped up if you beat me. Sorry, bud. But I had to take that hit.
Well, I took
all right. So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, on the topic of Elo, I feel bad for Yuan Ji Lee because I took a 113-point loss at the Pro Tour, and then he lost to me on the first day of the calling. So it's like, oh no, that's a bad hit for him.
Oh no.
But that's also something that's going to get kind of mitigated as more people play more rated events, and right, I think that's probably how it works. Maybe it doesn't. I could be wrong.
I think it goes to that. How are we getting into? What are we using Elo for? What is Elo in the first place? What's K? Oh God, all of it is just. I'm getting better at it, Adam. I think I have a passing understanding of what Elo is. It's still wrong. It should just be straight numbers that just go up and down the thousands and thousands of numbers for a multiplier. Completely unnecessary. But once they flesh this out, right, you're gonna have a rated player base, and then all the people who hate that you can get into some of these things with XP will not have to worry about it anymore, because a high tier circuit will have been established with a large enough player base where you can say, all right, everyone with this Elo gets in the Pro Tour and no one else does. So you can get rated at lower events, and you might be able to qualify for some lower rated events through XP. You can have your feeder system. You can have your feeder system in that way. I just seen a lot when you talk about armories not hitting and some of the online experience. I'm an online armory guy because of mostly out of necessity. Like everything else, I actually found an LGS with a Sunday afternoon armory. Shout out to Darkwater Games in Mashpee, Massachusetts. But as it turns out, that armory is the crowd there kind of ebbs and flows a little bit because Sunday afternoons aren't the best for a lot of players. So it just it just works out for me. I'm trying to get more people to attend regularly over there, but they're very nice down there. And one of my things was trying to get in front of more people and play more games in the Flesh and Blood. So I went from attending no armories to some armories, but I am kind of nervous when if the online armory scene kind of goes away, because on top of content creation, it's also one of my main gameplay avenues. So I would hope that at least some semblance of it sticks around. I do think it's 2022, the world is what it is. Some acceptance and semblance of online play I think is a step in a positive direction. Whether or not a webcam based tournament should qualify you for a certain level or tier of prizing or event is up for debate, but I wouldn't eliminate it. Please, LSS, let me play my games online. All right, so there's a lot of stuff coming up, and we just got done, as of this recording, I believe it was the last day of Uprising spoilers. Now, we're all going to do our own iteration of a spoiler show, so we're not going to break it all down there. But Tommy, quick first impressions of what you've seen from Uprising so far.
To boil it down to nothing too crazy, starting with Icelander, definitely going to be a player in CC, or obviously already was a player in Blitz, but I don't think she'll ever be top tier, but she will spike some events much like Kano. However, probably a little more resilient to people being prepared for her because of the nature of how she plays out. And I also think she is just built to be the most annoying hero ever. So it should be interesting how that goes with Iyslander. A lot of the spoilers are pretty cool. Some really cool combos and stuff like that for Iyslander. I think people are going to have a lot of fun building her. And I'm interested to see how she does in draft as well. Dromai, this might be kind of like a hot take, or maybe I'm just a hater. I think Dromai is a little bit of a trap. I still think Prism is the route to go if you're going illusionist. And that being said, I could be wrong. It's probably a matter of how you build her, but she's gonna be a lot of fun to draft, and I'm excited to do that. And those two-face card or double-face cards are awesome. The dragons are so cool.
The dragon invocations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Though it's getting a little magic-y in there. I don't know how much I love that. And then
creatures on the board.
Yeah, Fi is awesome. I think Phoenix Flame is so cool. I think people are. I think we're gonna see some real like heat from Fi. I think that I don't know. It's just he feels like he's playing with more cards than 4, and historically that's always been good. Look at Chain. Look at some other decks like that. They've always performed well, and if people can abuse that, and people will try to abuse that, I think Fi's the real deal. And yeah, very excited for it though. Overall, some really sweet cards too, and I think we're still one legend we haven't seen yet. One legendary.
2, I think.
2, maybe 2. Okay, cool.
And actually, maybe 3, because we got the wizard equipment, the generic headpiece,
the chest,
the illusionist arms. There's 6 in the set. 6 legendaries. So I don't know. I think there was 1.
We haven't seen a ninja one, right?
We haven't seen a ninja. That's the thing, right? What could those other legendaries be? But they do list 6 different they have 6 legendaries on the cut sheet. So I know of 3, and of course the Fabled.
The generic headpiece is insane, by the way. That card's so
I think it's
good.
great. Yeah, I think it's really good.
I can't wait to play it over Arcanite Skull.
Yeah, it's so good.
Someone made a comment on Twitter that they were underwhelmed by the legendaries, and I replied, I was like, I actually think that's pretty normal for legendary previews in Flesh and Blood. Like, for some reason you see those and they just do one little cute Crown of Seeds.
Crown of
Seeds and Stalagmite, right, are 2 examples of cards that when previewed you went, okay, I guess. I remember we were all sitting down in a Discord room and Stalagmite came up, and it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be a legendary. Frostbites are cute and you can 3-block, I guess. Sure. I'm still probably going to run Ram's Head all the time, except for very niche matchups. And, what the hell do we know? Stalagmite turns out to be super, super decent, and then Crown of Seeds, right? Looking at Crown of Seeds when Tails comes out, that's a super innocuous feeling ability at first glance. Like, okay, you get to take a card and prevent 1. Okay. Like, there's value there. But, that Crown of Seeds might be the most overtuned piece of equipment in the game today, in, borderline bannable, depending on who you talk to.
I also think the Ghostly Touch, the Illusionist Arms, it's very, very underwhelming. But so this is a conversation that came up. I had Mo Bogsley on my podcast earlier today, and it came up, well, why does it want you to pitch 3 to attack with it? And then we were thinking, oh, well, Prism wants yellow pitches, Dromai wants red pitches. Maybe this is the cycle that James White had referred to in his interview with Flake right before Everfest came out. So this is it's a card that, it's weird that they're printing it now, but it's clearly probably going to be for the illusionist that needs blue stuff. Also, it's like spooky themed, so we're probably getting a spooky themed illusionist coming out that wants blue pitches.
Well, if you want to play into like the 3-pitch illusionist, like Iris of Reality already hints that there is an Auras build out there that wants to build around blues. To take it a step further,
look at you, yeah, Iris and Ghostly Touch, it's coming together.
To take it a step further, what is it? One of my locals pointed out that we've seen Prism, like a predominantly yellow hero is kind of like bathed in yellow. We've seen Dromai, a predominantly red-based hero, kind of bathed in red. Has anybody ever realized that they're on the art for Shimmers? We have a illusionist that's predominantly bathed in blue.
Yep.
Surreal Reality, Shimmers, and Fractal.
Yeah.
Fractal Reflections. Is that what it's called?
Fractal Replication.
Fractal Replication. Yes. Yeah. The blue illusionist.
So
look at you.
I do think that the Fractal Replication illusionist and the Shimmers illusionist are two different characters.
You might be right.
But yeah,
I have the Shimmers playmat right here. It is different.
But to the point like that, we already, like, even before Ghostly Touch, there were some hints that we do, like, there is some archetype of illusionist that is predominantly blue based and likely leans heavily on auras, and maybe Ghostly Touch is going to play into that. I know some of the rumblings I've seen as well. There's an idea that, so there was this whole debate in one of the discords about whether Ghostly Touch can exist as an ally with 0 health. So, like, if you activate it with only 1 haunt counter on it, because then it would go to 0, will it be able to exist as a 0 health ally? And a deep dive into the comprehensive rules points out that the comprehensive rules don't address it existing at 0 health. It only addresses it being reduced to 0 health. When an ally is reduced to 0 health, they die. But if an ally comes in at 0 health, what happens? And now, if you can control this as a 0 health ally that pokes for 0, it's still a great Spectra popper, and can be very valuable in the Aura's mirror.
That's very interesting. That is... I mean, is that confirmed that that's how it works?
Well, that's the thing, is we don't know. Like, the comprehensive rules don't address it. As far as I understand, I didn't do the deep dive myself, but I was paying closely attention to a conversation between a couple other comprehensive rule gurus, and they could not identify what happens if Ghostly Touch comes into the battlefield as a 0/0.
Now, it's also worth noting that Frightmare is a 3-cost illusionist attack that cares about if something had been popped already. Phantasm had been popped. So, and that's like the second time we're seeing that. And, cost 3, just it screams that. It just, for me, it's a little weird that we're getting it now. And like you said, we've gotten a little bit of it elsewhere. So maybe it's coming down the road, but it's interesting to think about. Especially looking at the Ghostly Touch. That's a card that's either right now it's either terrible or the best finisher we've ever seen. I don't think there's going to be any in between.
It definitely screams like Uber control finisher, right? Where you don't play anything other than whatever, right? You defend, you play something with Phantasm into somebody that needs to pop it all the time, and then defend, get counters, and slowly just whittle down in the end game with this repeatable, recyclable little pinging style attack that you can get down. We talk about that, how they plan ahead here, and it does seem like everyone's given them a bit more props for Everfest and the items now that some of these heroes, some of these cards and heroes have been finally released, everyone's going, they prepared us for this in Everfest. We spent so long crapping on so many items, and it turns out they might have a whole hell of a lot of use in the Uprising meta.
Yeah, well, between was it with these redline decks and Talisman of Recompense, that's going to be a hugely powerful interaction. I think Talisman of Recompense cold foil is already up to $15 or $20 or something like that.
Look at my binder.
But then on top of that, we're getting what Tommy, you made that post about, was it Talisman of Cremation interacting with Phoenix Flames? That's that's incredible. Your opponent sets up maybe this huge end game, and then you're like, nah, I'm just gonna Talisman of Cremation and banish them all and have a nice day. There's so many powerful interactions that we're possibly going to see that I think we can't even fathom all of them right now.
Yeah, probably I imagine every single item will have some kind of really specific use that is very good in that specific use. I believe somebody made the point that, oh God, I'm blanking on, there's so many items. The one that cares if your opponent played 2 of the same attack and then you pop it, I think they...
Either tithes or echoes, right? Something.
Echoes, yeah. That one probably pretty good against the Phoenix Flames as well, I believe. I saw somebody talk about that. I gotta look it up.
Yeah. I think you are. Yeah, Amulet of Echoes, go again. Instant, destroy Amulet of Echoes. Target hero discards 2 cards. Activate this ability only if they've played 2 or more cards with the same name this turn. Like Phoenix Flame.
A little more niche, but something that makes their sequencing very hard. So
yeah, if they're really leaning hard into that. So I think that's one of the big questions going into Uprising, right? So my quick impressions here are that I think everyone is probably, I think there's a reason they didn't do a ton of Icelander stuff, right? I think it's because it really is going to kill a lot of dreams when Icelander's finally built. I think everyone's conceptually on the highest octane side of the spectrum right now with both Dromai and Phi, right? What happens if you have 60 zero cost red cards in your hand, and how far can you take a combat chain?
You thought Cheerios Briar was bad. We're going to take it to the next level.
Yeah, right? So unbalanced here, without a counter to it. Yeah, right? If there's nothing stopping you from doing it, why wouldn't you have all the zero cost red attacks to red pitch and just do this insane, and we've seen the people have been doing it on TTS, right? They're going 15, 20 links deep on the combat chain. It's ridiculous stuff, right? And so in Magic Christmas Land, we have a Phi that can OTK, and we have a Dromai that completely, just hordes dragons and does a whole bunch of Guardian-esque almost, disruptive effects, and you have these 2 fiery heroes that do amazing cool things. What I don't think people are giving enough credit is the existing status quo and the ability that heroes have to balance out these effects, and the cards already in place to do that. And I think what we'll see here is that going fast is fun, but you're gonna get stomped hard once somebody figures out what you're doing, and you'll see people start to balance out and kind of slow it down just enough so that they have the proper support. And I think there's something in 5 for an OTK deck, even once it's set up here. I think you can go wide enough and you can buff it enough where you're going to be able to present 40 plus in a Mordred Tide Viserai-esque type of chain where you have that same versatility, right? If if you take Chain Bound by Shadow and Viserai, and more so them than maybe Katsu in terms of like your synergies and your aggressive play going into these Rune Blades, I think is going to be what might benefit you more into playing with Fi than if you've been a Katsu main going, all right, this is another ninja here. The combo element is a completely different beast than this aggressive synergy element that Fi has here. So there is something there, right? There's something dangerous. There's something that is likely tier 1 if it's done correctly. But you still have to figure out the puzzle of Oldham, Icelander. Prism is not going away. Bravo is back, likely. But like there will be a counter to all the fun stuff that they're showing off right now. And we want to temper expectations here at the Combat Chain because we care about the competitive meta, and we just want you to know that you have to think about this a little bit, and there's going to be some disciplined deck building that goes into making these heroes work. So just don't get all your marvels and throw them in and expect to win Nats. That's all. But that's my quick Uprising impression here.
Well, yeah, you made a good point. The great equalizer in the upcoming meta will be Ice heroes, Ice Lexi, Oldham, Icelander. It's going to change the way we have to build decks if we want to be aggressive, and it also changes the way we approach control. So, it would be awesome if we're all 38 damage with 5. A single turn or something like that, but it's probably not likely to happen often. Someone's gonna push it, but here at the Combat Chain, which I'm co-guesting on, I agree, Pat.
Honorary link of the Combat Chain, Tommy Fresh. I will say, here's my hottest take of them all. Kadachi's is wrong. Searing Emberblade is correct. Don't Kadachi Fi. It's wrong.
Yeah, makes sense. If you're running Redline, you're probably, even though you're running 0-cost attacks, like you're not reliably pitching that one blue that you can Kadachi off of. And
they're not draconic.
I was going to get to that. There is one card that does make them draconic, and I cannot for the life of me remember the name off the top of my head.
I know what you're talking about. It just came out. I think it was this afternoon. There is a card. In fact, I think it was in one of the unseals, either the first one or Chris Sayers unseals. But he definitely had a. You know what I can do? Look at my own channel.
But despite that, I know you'll find it in a sec here. I do agree though that Kadachi's is not what you want to be doing in Fi. Fi is looking to establish as many draconic chain links as possible, I think, from what I've seen so far, and capitalize off of that. So the Kadachis just don't contribute to that reliably.
Yeah, and I'm sure there is a build that has that. I'm sorry, Tommy. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's interesting that we're not getting, as far as I can tell, majestic weapons for these heroes.
Very disappointed. When I first saw Searing Emberblade, I was like, all right, I'm going to wait for the M. But it does not look like that day is coming.
I do wonder, because outside of Tails, we only ever saw M equipments in supplemental sets. I do wonder if maybe with Tails they tried something new out and they're like, you know what, we're going to stick to doing the M equipment in the supplemental set, and that's part of the reason why we're not getting it out of Uprising. If maybe we're going to see it in whichever, the next supplemental set after Uprising, if that's going to be when we see some stuff that's going to maybe supplement.
We actually got him in Monarch, Hexagore.
Oh, you're right. We did get M weapons in Monarch as well. We got just the weapons. Yeah.
Weapons I guess, which is the latest draft sets and equipment, right? In the supplementals, right? I really like a ninja piece of equipment that blocks.
What do you mean? You got breaking scales, you got breeze rider boots, you got mask of momentum.
Yeah.
So here's the question: Is it pouncing links or momentum that we're playing?
Ooh. I think it's Mask of Momentum.
All right, so there's gonna be two decisions that you gotta make here, right? And so Pouncing Lynx gets you Salt the Wounds. And how much you care about Salt the Wounds depends on how you've set up your chain.
I didn't even
here.
think of Salt the Wound in Fae. Oh, that's so spicy.
So I'll tell you what. I have been Katsu guy by trade, right? Briar by necessity, Katsu by passion here. But us Katsu players talk a lot, right? And so if you go on to if you look at esteemed Tavern Brawler team members, Jupiter and Joe Bay, also known as Crimson Mist, those two have been really on the pioneering front of a Katsu list that is really different than what you are used to seeing. And so when Everfest first came out, right, there was an attempt at a turbo Katsu, right? Take out Surging Line, what do you have, right? You ride the tailwinds, things of that nature. You had the break tide lines back in, and you had that kind of even lower to the ground Katsu list. Coming into New Jersey, there was another list, and primarily I primarily saw it played by those guys, and they were brainstorming together. And Joe Bay is an incredible brewer of decks. I consider myself a bit of a brewer myself these days, but he takes the next step very early on, and it's their advances that you typically don't even see until like a month or 2 months later, and it's very impressive to see that. So both of those guys running slight variants of the same deck, but it uses Stubby Hammers, Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, and Katsu, and the combo is, and they've already played, so I'm not spilling secret sauce anymore. It uses Belittle, all right, Stubby Hammers, and Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. Whenever you hit, you want to get Tunic to 3, and when your Tunic is to 3, hopefully by turn 3, you have the tools in hand here. You start with an attack. You break Stubby Hammers. You start with an attack with Belittle. If you hit, you can activate Katsu and Mask of the Pouncing Lynx at the same time. When you do that, it depends on what your hand has. You can fetch for something like double 100 wins or something of that nature to continue on your line. But what you really want to do is, on top of triggering those things, you want to add an Art of War at instant speed to the equation there. So when you add the Art of War stubbies and the two on hits to fetch cards, you end up netting three attack cards like in your already large hand. And with the combination of the stubbies and the Art of War, your things are buffed by 2 already, and you have a combat line of 3 base attacks that are actually attacking for 5 with Go Again. And if you stack that line correctly, even with Kadachi's, your Salt the Wounds ends up being 7th or 8th in line on the combat chain. And depending on how many you've hit, its base attack is 2, which is why you can fetch it with Pouncing Lynx. It's already getting another +2 from Art of War and Stubby Hammers, so you're already at base 4. Now, however many hits you get on your combat chain, Salt the Wound gets +1 for each one of those things. So in this iteration of Katsu, if it hits, you can get, believe it's a 42 damage turn, which is right there with Bolton Sabers, and OTK Viscerai, right? It's right at that number there.
Hey, don't forget about Wildfire Kano.
And Wildfire Kano, right? But it has, the ceiling is there. Once we were in New Jersey, I know that they went and talked with LSS there, and they brought up Stubby Hammers, Pouncing Lynx, and the combo, and LSS confirmed that is likely why Stubbies is banned starting in June in Blitz for the same kind of concept here. But stubby hammers is still going to be legal in CC, and Salt the Wounds is going to be a thing. So if you're a ninja that cares about the combat chain, Salt the Wounds becomes a very real consideration. It's a 0-cost yellow 2 attack that gets buffed for every hit on the combat chain.
I remember
it's gonna happen.
I remember when was it Drone of Brutality got banned? Was it Drone? Yeah, it was Drone. When Drone got banned, and we started to think of, like, at the time we were all like, what does Ira replace Drone with? And I think I'm trying to remember how there was like, yeah, there, like, through that there was like this, a lot of people took on like kind of deck building with Ira. And there was a lot of debate about what the correct cards were. And I remember at the time, I was like, Salt the Wound is a good card. And people would argue with me that it wasn't. And I was like, no, it's a good card. Like, I mean, it pitches for 2, it blocks for 3, it does gross things on the combat chain if people let things hit. Like, it's to now hear that's...
It is. And, so it has been... it's been one of the silver bullets in Katsu aggro lists for the last year, and people, some people just think they're crazy for playing it, but Katsu aggro, super redline Katsu aggros are running Ravenous Rabbles and Salt the Wounds when they're going into full aggro, and it works when it works, right?
You say when it works, though. Is that the issue, that it doesn't always work?
Yeah. So the problem with the Katsu combo as it stands is that it requires so many pieces to move forward correctly, that it is a victim to its own variance there. So I believe Phi is in a position where you're not. Katsu is relying on those combo pieces that you're able to fetch, which is why it's important to find 100 wins, and it's important to find, it's important to find either at that point, either another 100 wins, Winds of Eternity, or Assault the Wounds, right? If you grab the Assault the Wounds and it's not the correct play, it doesn't work out anyways. But if your hand is 2 blue 100 wins and a yellow 100 wins, you're not going to get the same impact as, some of the more powerful lines that you might be able to play there. So it can be, because it's base 3 and works off stubby hammers, you do have to play a lower quality card, and that can bite you in the ass when it's time to go off, right? Briar ends up in kind of a similar situation when you need to go off and you need an attack with go again, and you grab and it's burgeoning, right? It just sometimes it happens, and it just doesn't work out. So the ceiling is there, the floor is real low, and sometimes I think you get your percentage points up there on the floor end of things before that becomes a real thing. But there's non-talented ninja cards that are definitely going to see play here. Double Strike, that's going in Katsu. Katsu is about to get more aggressive as well. So you're likely to have 2 viable ninjas in the constructed meta coming up here, and they're both going to play differently, but they're both going to hit really, really hard. I'll tell you, while I'm on the tangent, my concern with Phi is that it becomes dash aggro weak, right? You can boost, if you just play dash aggro with a bunch of yellows and blues and just boosted it, it doesn't do much. You just wait for Techno Pounder to come out, and you're hitting for 3 apiece until you fatigue yourself, right? The worst case scenario is that Phi has a 15 link combat chain that hits for 8 total and burns through half your deck anyways. What are you going to do with that? Not a whole lot, right? So I feel like that's the potential floor there, right? If people go too far in one direction, you're going to end up in this really easy to fatigue, underpowered deck.
Yeah, I think though if you are though pulling out a 15 link combat chain, because part of the reason dash is so easy to fatigue is because it's Well, boost dash is because it's not these huge drawn out combat chains. Like if your opponent clues in early enough that it's just a boost dash, they can very effectively block it. I think Faye, on the other hand, goes shorter but so much wider that if as the opponent you decide you want to block it, well, where do you block now? Like you if it's going to be 15 attacks for one, threatening a total of 15 damage, and you have to commit 3 cost blocks or a single card to block one, right. Like you're not getting that value on your blocks. So I think Faye has more room to punish than even though it's a similar example, I think Faye can punish harder than Boost Dash can right off the bat because of how wide Faye can potentially go.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely going to be something there. Before we get into the main topic, I do have one more since we're talking constructed and shop talk here. Tommy, have you put your belittles and minnowisms into Levia yet?
Oh, that has never happened, man. Oh no. My God!
What do you reveal to trigger the belittle?
Yeah. What is I mean, I so rarely play those crazy go wide decks. I don't even know what I have to reveal with belittle. What is it? A 0 cost?
It's an attack action, base 3 or less attack
power.
You'd have to be running yellow ghostlies.
Yellow ghostlies, which sounds awful. So,
it does.
Yeah,
but you can play it from banish.
And minnowisms. True, very true. I guess actually, you know what? There is a world where I've played mutated mass in Levia, so that counts.
Okay, hang on. How does mutated mass read? Because mutated mass is,
I think it's one of those state-based effects, or it's reading wherever it's a static, whatever it's reading at the time is what it counts
constantly checking. So like there's some times where mutated mass would trigger it, and there's other times where it wouldn't.
As long as it's on the right time. I say that in jest a little bit, but I do feel I don't know what it is. Belittle and minnowism's been around for a while, but I think everyone's just starting to get a whiff of it because I feel like it's everywhere right now, and I think it shows up in both the draconic heroes as well, and I think that'll be slightly frustrating just to see a little of that homogenization that Flesh and Blood can be a little guilty of sometimes. A little samey. Here's your staple card, and all of a sudden belittle minnowism engine has become that.
It will show up in 5, but I think it will be wrong to show up in Dromai. That's my initial take on that. I'm sure people will try it. I don't think it's gonna be what Dromai really wants to do in the end. But yeah, you're right. People will throw it in there.
Yeah, I think they'll throw it and they currently are throwing it into like basically as many little things as they can. And it'll be interesting to see how much if that creates a problem if LSS would address that in the near future. It does some weird things. It does create some efficiencies. Like I'm playing Briar for so long. Briar is now on to the belittle engine, and it just doesn't. I've never jived with it, but it's in Katsu. I've tried it in Katsu. I don't like it. I've tried it, and I tried Chain for a while. Never liked it. And now, I thought I was happy with Briar. Now everyone's on belittle Briar, and it's like, oh, I can't get away from this stupid card group. And oh man, and I'll tell you what, in Commoner, it is the worst. Belittle Briar in Commoner needs to go. It is not good.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's safe to say that it won't be coming to, I guess, Guardian or
Belittle Guardian
anytime soon.
No? You don't see it happening? Not yet.
No.
Not yet.
Guardian running a bunch of cards like Red Overload to trigger it. I don't know.
I'm saying, right? Maybe if Starvo was still around, it might have shown up. But
if Ball Lightning wasn't banned, 100%.
Channel Mount Hero, yeah, 100%. Yep, belittle Ball Lightning Starvo. Wow.
Oh God.
Ugh, gross.
I'm so mad every time I would see that.
Sounds terrible. It does. Channel Mount Heroic, Channel Lake Frigid, and Ball Lightnings. Oh, that's the worst combination.
That sounds terrible.
Man.
That sounds terrible to play into.
I can go even further into the woods here. I will say, without any context, Young Chain and Seeds will be legal on 624. So we'll just leave that at that. They're legal and Classic Constructed. You can play them. It's not the worst thing in the world. Seeds will be unsuspended 624. Bring your Young Chains out to Classic Constructed events. You have more life than you think. All right. The main topic of the podcast that we're finally getting around to is drafting. Uprising will be the next draftable set when it is released on 624. Since Tales in
almost a year.
September, a year of one set, right? The limited aficionados in the Flesh and Blood have been just frothing at the mouth, and that is actually my biggest inspiration for having Tommy Fresh onto the pod today, because Tommy, you are a limited aficionado. You have said, you've gone on the record saying that it is your favorite format. Is that correct?
It is. I think it's the best way to play the game. I stand by that. I don't know if aficionado is the right word. It's probably more just junkie. It's one of those things where we have no online client, so I am just craving it so much. I wonder how much that would change, because even when I was playing Magic and drafting a lot, I would still draft a lot online. I imagine if there was an online client, I would be drafting probably like at least 4 times more than I was on Magic. So I think Flesh and Blood is a great limited game, and I'm super excited that after 9 months or however long it was that we have another set to draft.
Adam, what I don't think I've ever asked you about your drafting affinity. How do you feel about the limited formats here?
I love it. I'll play limited over constructed like any day of the week. I absolutely love that limited forces you to work with what you have and not with this magical Christmas land of like, I can put anything I want into my deck, and having to find the best plays out, or build the best decks out of what you got, find the best plays out of suboptimal cards. I think it's in my opinion, if I had to choose one form or one way to play the game, it would be limited.
Hell yeah. All
right. It's funny because I am on the exact opposite.
I know.
I feel about it. So this is interesting. So I don't draft, right? I am historically, a proven fact, I am the worst Magic drafter in the history of people opening packs and picking cards. It is just something about it is never clicked. And even when if you just blindly picked cards, the odds of you picking the right one are better than how I pick my Magic cards in a draft. But how important is limited play in a TCG? Is it truly a make or break? Like, I'm a constructed fiend. If all I do is buy packs to open them, sometimes for singles, buy my singles, find out what the best deck is in a constructed format, throw those cards together, and play the list that I want to play. But there is this entire side to TCGs that says that you are going to pick random cards, half of which are garbage. And from that, you are going to create this competitive, this pool of cards, and you're going to face off with another person. How important is that to the long-term health of a TCG?
Personally, I think it's very important. Now, you mentioned that half these cards are garbage. I mean, it's all relative, right? you get to really evaluate, at least in Flesh and Blood, you get to evaluate. It's probably true for almost any TCG that has draft. You know, you get to evaluate these cards at their very base level, right? You know, it's so easy to look at a card and say, "Ah, God, I mean, you know, it's fine, but I would never throw it into, you know, Oldham or whatever." But but then you're like super happy to play I guess like a yellow Glacial Footsteps in Tales of Aria draft. It's like because it just it gives you a different kind of value, and it when you kind of have that intimate approach and experience with the game in a level that one of the coolest things about these games is to open packs, and like it's cool to open the pack and then start playing with them like almost immediately. And that's I think what a lot of these classic TCGs started as. And whether, I mean, it wasn't drafting then, but it was like, let's buy some packs, build some decks, and play. It wasn't like, you know, looking at all these giant card pools and stuff like that. Let's work with what we have. And I think that is important for the game.
Yeah, I agree. To Tommy's point, like a card is only bad when there's a better card that does, you know, the same effect or a better effect. But once again, when you're reduced to only the cards in your pool, suddenly your bad cards can become good cards, because it's like, you know, like let's say like in Welcome to Wrath, like your red Sink Belows and your red Scar for Scars are suddenly just these primo cards that, like, don't get me wrong, Sink's a decent card outside of limited, but like these cards become powerhouses because they are allowed to shine amongst, you know, without being overshadowed by your E-strikes or your Command and Conquers or what have you. Limited force, I'm trying to think where I'm going with this. Limited really allows a set to shine, and it's so, like, just to come back to that point, like it's so rewarding to just be stuck with your pool and to build a winning deck out of that. Like one of my fondest moments playing Flesh and Blood is a Tales of Aria draft skirmish that I managed to take down, and I won on the jankiest line. Like I played an Inspire Lightning fused, and then I blinked to gain my action point, and then the lethal point of damage was a Singeing Steel Blade, where the arcane damage, I was playing into an Oldhim, where it was like it was a yellow Singeing Steel Blade, where I needed to find ways to deal damage without allowing him to de-react. And it's like, these cards are like, no one plays Inspire Lightning in Constructed. No one plays Singeing Steel Blade in Constructed, yet I won a skirmish off of these cards. Like that, yeah, it's such a rewarding way to play the game.
Yeah, and I think also, yeah, and we get these intimate interactions with these cards we'll never play in Constructed. And down the road, we're going to look back at Tales of Aria, right? I mean, I will look back at Tales of Aria, and maybe it will be nostalgia. Or let's actually use Uprising as an example. I'll look back at Uprising in 5 or so years. Like, oh, that was when, you know, Phi and Draconic, we first got that. But like, I can bet any amount of money that I'm going to remember the draft format more than anything. I think that it just is so associated within the whole microcosm of the set that it gives you a full feel for what they wanted to put forward. And it's cool. Like, I guess another card I was thinking of while, you know, from Tales that I've never seen play in Constructed, but felt so good to play in Limited was Summerwood Shelter. And, you know, that card was, that card was insane in Limited. And it's cool, right? Because it doesn't feel like, you know, that's why I hate supplemental sets, especially like some of the cards in Everfest when they gave us like draft chaff.
Yeah.
Like in the common slot. I'm like, what is this?
What are you doing here? Yes, exactly.
like I look at it like, oh, this would have been sweet to draft with, but you know, that's why draft's the best, Pat.
I've never understood. So I do think that there's a difference between Flesh and Blood Limited and other limited formats in other games that I've played. And Magic, I go back to Magic because it was, for me, way too complex. And it made me wonder why. And it's still one of the big questions I've always had with TCGs is like, why do bad cards exist? I guess it's like for a challenge, but like, you know, why do crap cards exist? Like I got a pile of just chaff because I can't throw anything out, but I'm never gonna play these cards, and I love Flesh and Blood, right? I got a pile of Magic cards here. No one's gonna touch these. No one's gonna touch the whatever the hell I got over there. There's so many. There's 30 years of just garbage, right? That just comes out of those limited formats because they're, you know, it forces you to pick, right, the super inefficient removal because that's, it's a limited bomb because any removal is good, and all of a sudden 6 mana removal, is like, oh my god, I'm evaluating this card, but if you put it into constructed, you might as well set it on fire. Right, I've never quite understood how that translates into a game experience, and that translated into poor limited play. Right, I will say one of the things I love about Flesh and Blood is that I've experienced that the game has a knack, has the ability to scale itself to the format without losing its core tenets, right? So if you take let's use Tales and Oldhim, right? Oldhim in Constructed, right, is built a certain way. Right? You have Ice, you have Guardian. Your Guardian tenets are blue cards. Oldhim is elemental cards. You have your heavy bombs that are red on top. You have predominantly blue base. You do Oldhim things where you play with the elementals. You got to make sure your ratios are good so that you have the right amount of blues, right amount of fuses, et cetera, et cetera. If you go down from Constructed to Blitz, it doesn't change terribly much. There's a slight variance here and there. There's in Blitz right now, there's like an aggressive, a mid-range, and like a fatigue Oldhim, but a lot of the same things carry through. I found in my limited experience that when you open either sealed or draft, you're not exploring completely foreign ideas. You're taking your heroes and the tenants and drafting or constructing from a sealed pool a lot of, based on the core game plan that was established already in constructed, right? So if I'm opening a sealed pool and I have a large amount of good blues and a couple heavy hitters with a lot of defense reactions, it's a natural progression for me to try and put Oldhim together and likely have a successful deck. And it will not play that much differently than it would in other things, with the exception of playing these suboptimal cards, right? Where you might only play the blues or the reds, you're going to be forced to yellows. Some of the, some ideally blues are now your reds, and that's where you can get kind of your limited bombs into. But like, there's always still going to be like Scar for Scar blue, right? There's only so many. There's Benji, and then there's nothing else, and it's really filler. If you need something, it makes Kadachi's go when you absolutely need a blue, which to its, it's not a dead card. It's not a garbage card. It's not the best attack in the world, but in the right scenario, it does what it needs to do regardless, and still these cards still hold a role here. What is your in Flesh and Blood drafting? Have you found there to be any basic principles that you're able to maintain? Like if you're going into a new draft environment, Magic has had whatever is bombs, removal, something. Is there something like that in Flesh and Blood for the experienced limited player? Like, do you, as experienced limited players, have one of those types of systems when looking at a draft for newer players to help translate into better picks?
It's a really good question.
I think a good way to approach it is, I don't know if we'll be able to make bread, but equipment is important, and recognizing which equipment is good is very important. And you have to realize that it's going to be a lot weaker than you're used to in constructed, right? You know, you look at something like Deep Blue in Tales of Aria. That card was amazing in limited. Yeah, you rarely see it in any constructed tables. So that's, and another thing is generic. So equipment in generic and staying open is so important in Flesh and Blood for the first half of the first pack, right? Basically until you get into the really specific cards, because it does cut off at that point.
Tell me about staying open. What do you mean by that?
So you want to stay open. You don't want to like pick exactly what hero you are drafting right away. So if there's some generics, right? I think Scar for a Scar is in this set, so that's a great first pick, I would say. Red Scar for a Scar. You pick that. This is going to be good regardless of what deck I'm in, most likely. And you want to take the next couple picks to kind of feel it out. Signals are a tough thing in Flesh and Blood draft. This is something that is talked about a lot in Magic drafting, where you kind of can figure out who's in which archetype at the table. Now in Flesh and Blood draft, it's a little tough because there's, especially in Uprising, there's 3 heroes, 8 people. So it's probably going to be something like 3, and 2, or like 4, 2, and 2, something like that. Usually, if it's 4, 2, and 2, I hope you picked up the signals that there's 4 other people in a certain archetype. But that is not going to be as clear cut because everybody's kind of fighting for similar things. But then you got to figure out the kind of vanilla test of a lot of these cards. You mentioned that a lot of these cards suck. They're not good. They don't serve a purpose in the rest of the game. But you have to figure out what's good, and I think knowing your breakpoints is good, and knowing what is a good rate for your blue, right? Blue is so good. You're going to need maybe sometimes 50% of your deck needs to be blues, and you got to make sure they're going to be good at the end of the game. After you've pitched them. So those are just some like quick things I would start thinking about. And the main thing is read the heroes before you start drafting, so you know exactly what they want to do. It's usually pretty clear cut.
You brought up a term there. I'd like to expound on signals. Tell me about signals.
Well, let's say you get past a pack, like, I don't know, halfway through the draft, and you're just looking through it, and there's a lot of ice cards left, not a lot of draconic. You can guess that a couple players to your right are probably on fire Dromai. And maybe a signal right there is, and this is assuming this is pack 1, this is a good time to jump into Icelander, because I know for a fact pack 3, when it comes back to the left, they're going to be passing me more good ice cards. That's a signal that I would say is going to be pretty clear cut in this upcoming format.
I will say in my very first Tales draft that did take place in New Jersey, I do love Fab Limited. I do love. I crap on Limited a lot, but I think I get Flesh and Blood Limited. Right. I think one of my one of the parts that I would have to get better on is the not just signals, but I think I still have to evaluate cards in a limited environment slightly differently than I would. But the tenets still, stay the same. A red Scar for Scar, a 0 cost attack for 4 is good. A defense reaction that blocks for 4 is good, right? Those things happen. If you are if you're drafting Lexi, right, you're looking for 2 things, right? You're looking for your elemental cards to help with fusing, and you're looking for red arrows. Right, red arrows that cost 1 and attack for 5. You're gonna you're probably going to value your ice cards at a slightly higher premium initially, and then fill out with your arrow cards. But we know Lexi needs a certain threat density in all levels of the game, right? I talk about scaling how the game can scale itself up and down, right? Lexi in Constructed needs to have a heavy threat density of arrows that do something and hit hard enough. So you see a lot of red, your red arrows that cost 1 an attack for 5 and 0 for 4, right? A 0 for 3 arrow usually doesn't cut it, depending on the format, right? So in limited, I can see that, if the ice cards are not coming my way, someone's going to be on ice. But if I see a lot of red arrows being passed my way, I might be able to infer that Lexi is open because I have the ammo is coming my way, right? Where that is in the draft position versus, and I think in my draft, I immediately I did draft Lexi and I went red arrows immediately, but I didn't have any elemental cards of any kind. There was no lightning, there was no earth, there was no ice. There was only like glacial footsteps and elemental arrows and like entwine something, right? So I had the pick of the litter, but I think for my first 8 cards, I don't think I saw in any of those packs, I didn't see anything that even resembled an element to it, and that was super, super frustrating. And I don't know if I could do anything about that, to be honest. But we talked about signals. It's definitely something, right? So we know that each of these draftable sets, so they have a limited amount of heroes, and I think what makes Flesh and Blood pretty cool is that you can identify those things, right? There's the card pools are such that you're going to have in Welcome to Wraith, you have your hero cards and like generic cards that might support your hero. So if your ninja cards are coming through, ninja's open, right? And you can expand on that in a lot of these sets. And as these talents come in, right, things are going to get a little more complex, but at the same time, we know that there's only so many ways to skin a cat in these limited formats in Flesh and Blood. So you're still going to be able to build decks that do the thing that your hero does, as long as you have a basic understanding of the function of that hero. I think it's safe to say. Initial impressions of what Uprising draft might look like. You had mentioned, Tommy, you might going to see some signals that are going to put you, depending on what you're going to see there, you might see half Draconic and half Icelander, and those Draconics might be split out. What do you guys think about seeing what you've seen thus far? How do you see an Uprising draft happening right now?
Me personally, I think it's going to be interesting. One really cool thing about draft I've always loved is, especially when you play IRL with cardboard, is that it is going the format will evolve, right? What we think is the best draft deck will change. I imagine probably multiple times throughout Road to Nats and into Pro Tour Lille. We saw this with Tales of Aria with everybody's Briar in draft, and then bam, Namvo kind of comes out of nowhere, builds a really cool defensive Oldhim deck, and then going on from there, we saw some really neat stuff going on with like Ice Oldhim and Lexi coming out of nowhere because everybody was so focused on Briar and Oldhim. I think we're going to see even more of that because, to me, I think Icelander is going to fill the similar role that Lexi has filled in the previous 3-hero draft format, in terms of, probably the less drafted, but we'll soon find out that she might be one of the best heroes to draft. So all of a sudden people are going to be fighting over the smaller ice pool, and it's going to be really interesting. And it might be wrong to do it, even though it is the best deck, which it makes for a very interesting draft format. And that's probably what I would expect. Based on what I've seen so far.
So Tommy had some insights on draft tenants. Adam, in your experience in draft here, what kind of strategies have you implemented to serve your drafting experience best? So you said you took down a draft skirmish. You have some pretty extensive experience in the high levels here. What are some of the things that you've been able to utilize in previous drafts here to give yourself the most effective card pool?
So staying
in a given draft,
like Tommy says, staying open is like in the early portion of the draft is really important until like first half of the first pack. You need to really try hard to read the signals and kind of see what's going on the table, and that can be hard with the first few packs. So like I know when you first start off, maybe you pack one, pick one, some bomb, and then after that you think, well, I want to try to make this bomb work. Now I want to try to force whatever I need to force to build around this card. And I think right off the bat, being okay with abandoning your first couple picks is very important. If I pack what, Tales of Aria is still the draft set that's most recent in my mind. If I pack one, pick one, a Honing Hood, and then a couple packs later, all the lightning and ice dries up, well, I know full well I'm not going to go into Lexi, because you're not going to get the quality of cards you need. And I think within that, there's, to go back to the concept of picking or of reading signals, there's a few like really key things I like to keep in mind when I'm trying to read signals. And if we look at a set like Tales of Aria, you can read signals based off like the class cards you're seeing, but I've found like in Tales of Aria, reading the class cards is actually going to lead you down a bad path. And one of the best signals was the element cards, the talented cards. If you're seeing early lightning cards, well, now Briar might be a good choice, or Lexi might be a good choice. Or if you're seeing early ice, early earth, you follow the hero based off of the element or the talent card, or over the class cards, because there are more class cards in the pack than there are element cards, and it was the element cards that people were fighting over. If we look at another great example, there was one of the first limited callings was won by Matt Rogers, or one of the first limited callings for Monarch was won by Matt Rogers on Chain. And Matt Rogers actually, in an interview after that finals, or the top 8 draft for that, I think it was calling Auckland. Matt Rogers, in an interview afterwards, said he didn't know that Chain was open until he actually wheeled an Aether Ironweave, and that was the signal he used to kind of hone in his pick. And that's when we say like reading signals, and like where I try to find success, it's not just like on the face value of, I'm seeing, if we go into looking at Uprising, even though no one's drafted Uprising yet, like your good signals, like say for example for Icelander, it's not going to be the wizard cards. It's not going to be it's going to be the ice cards. It's going to be the cards that I believe she still has some fusions in her ice cards for some of her elemental wizard stuff. It's going to be the cards you use to fuse. It's going to be like the most sought after cards are going to be the ones that are going to be the best signals. So if you see a late piece of ninja equipment, when you wheel your pack, pick 9 of pack 1, you're going to get so much information out of that pack. And if you can identify that something wheeled, and when I say wheeled, that means like something went all the way around the table, if you can identify that like something potent wheeled the table, that is going to be the signal you want to lean in on. Unfortunately, like I do think Flesh and Blood limited, even though you can read your hero, and that can be a really good indicator on like what kind of cards you should be drafting to try to, you know, build around the archetype that your hero wants to whatever your hero wants to be doing. Yeah, unfortunately, Flesh and Blood doesn't have the something like Bread that's as easy to follow at this point. Like there just isn't no developed heuristic. But I think that's where, yeah, I found the most success. That was a really long-winded way to say like that.
No, that was good. That's the spice I was looking for. So you did mention, so to go back, and I'm trying to just kind of flesh out how the hell I'm supposed to draft cards here. You would mention that so both of you have said essentially the same thing when you're starting out, right? Stay generic until it's time not to. You had mentioned that Matt Rogers didn't, saw an Aether Ironweave wheel back here. What's this? When do you stop? When do you stop going generic and go, okay, here it is.
So
this is what I'm going to do.
Mathematically, if we look at a draft mathematically, you're going to draft 45 cards. Out of those 45 cards, you need at least 30 cards to be playable. And where this is really significant in Flesh and Blood, aside from Magic, when you're drafting in Magic, you can draft maybe 20 odd cards, give or take 25. That'll be quasi playable, and then you can just stuff a bunch of lands into your deck to fill it out. You don't have that same luxury in Flesh and Blood. So sure, you have cracked baubles, but cracked baubles contribute nothing to your deck. Now, Uprising is going to
pitch
until you draw up at the end of the game, because you always see like second and third cycles of the deck. If you build around cracked baubles, you will draw up into 4 cracked baubles at the end of the game, and your deck will effectively do nothing. Now,
that's a good point.
Uprising brings a really interesting element, though, in the fact that we have token rarity playables. That does fundamentally change the math. But if we don't factor that in, like I said, you need, out of 45 drafted cards, you need at least 30 playables. So if you think about it, by the end of pack 1, you need to be damn well sure whatever you're drafting, and you got to lean into it, because if you're still being wishy-washy and like staying open by the end of pack 1, you're going to have a very synergistic deck. Got there. So I think no later than pick 9, you should be starting to try to hone in what your deck's going to, well, like what hero at least your deck's going to be. Any later than that, if you're starting to make that decision in the beginning of pack 2, it might be too late. You might just end up with a pile of cards that don't do what you want them to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever been past that pack 1 where I've made the switch or anything like that. Though I did make a joke earlier with someone that if I opened that new Fabled in pack 3, pick 1, I would take it because it's that good, and try to make my Icelander deck turn into a Draconic deck in 15 picks.
Draconic Icelander. You know what though? If you open that Fable pack 3, you drop out of the draft. You've already won.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I'm out. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you make some great points there, Adam, and I think that another important thing to realize when you're drafting, right? And this is somewhat of a heuristic, is kind of remembering what you've picked pitch wise, right? First of all, you're going to see your whole deck. 30 cards there's no doubt about it, you're going to see your whole deck almost every game, unless something goes terribly wrong. Though, I mean, if 5's really that good, maybe things will go terribly wrong.
Maybe you're going to see all 30 cards in a turn.
Maybe. And so you're going to see that whole deck, and also, it's just some nice knowledge to have, right? So when you're picking cards, you pick them with intent. Pick them with like, I want to do this with this at this point in the game, and this with this at another point in the game, right? You pick the blues that are going to be good later, or you have to keep in mind what's in your deck at all time, because it's going to be so easy to see all of it. So also something worth noting is you got to realize where your hero is going to skew pitch wise, right? In Tales of Aria, you really had to like pick a ton of blues, right? And hopefully earth blues, but like blues in general, because a lot of that strategy was fatigue, Titan's Fist, and we are, it's a little more black and white in Uprising, it looks like. I think both Dromai and Fire are going to be very red heavy. It's pretty much in their card text, and Icelander is going to be blue heavy. It's nice that they've laid that out for us, but going forward in other limited formats, that's going to be worth noting. And if you need your hand to be 2 blues every time you draw up, you want to have close to 15 blues. And also, don't be afraid to add extra cards. I always think it's fine to add extra cards in limited, because you do see everything. If you have more playables than 30.
I'm going to give an example that hard disagrees with that last one. Just because I once upon a time I would have completely agreed with that heuristic of like, it's okay to play more than 30. In my nationals last year, I drafted this fire Lexi deck. Like I got a late Voltaire, and it was awesome. Game 1, game 2, I ran my deck at 30 cards, and I had a very streamlined deck. It did exactly what I wanted it to do when I wanted it to do it. In game 3, I ended up getting paired up into an Oldhim, and immediately my gut reaction was, okay, I'm going to bring in the rest of my sideboard. I'm not going to let myself get fatigued here. What I ended up doing was bringing in a ton of cards that were unsynergistic to my deck. Even though they were Ranger cards, they didn't fit in with my game plan, and I actually think if I had stuck with the 30 cards, my deck would have had the firepower I needed to win that match. So there are times where bringing in more cards is fine. If you have, a 32, 34, 36, 40 card pool that is synergistic and does what your deck wants to do, yeah, have at her. But be mindful of the fact that you can bring in extra cards, because you draft up to 45 cards and you can play your entire pool. You may bring in cards that are going to water down your deck and are going to prevent you from seeing the power cards when you want to see them. And I think that's just something to be mindful of.
Yeah, you bring in a good point. Just, don't bring in cards to bring them in. I guess is the best way to state that. Bring them in with intent and purpose.
But it just goes back to your point of like, everything you're doing in limited is with intent and purpose. Like each card you draft, every decision you make, you can't. There was a very important lesson I learned when I started playing Magic, and was that like, don't just make decisions, have a reason for why you're making the decision. And I think that's a lesson that translates into Flesh and Blood, and definitely into Flesh and Blood Limited.
That's awesome. You know what? I think I'm ready to crack some packs. Pack one, pick one, expose elements. That's what I'm going to choose. Next Tales draft. I got that. That was my last card in that draft in New Jersey. I got my last card had to have been like double wheeled, expose the element.
Remember passing it.
It was pick 15 of pack 3 or whatever it was. I think I would have rather the token. It was foiled too. It was a foil majestic.
It was nice.
Oh man!
Imagine being that poor, sad, lonely, exposed the element, just going around the table. Nobody wants it.
The saddest exposed the element. Some cards are not meant for draft. Non-majestic potential.
Imagine if you picked that expose the elements and you blew up someone's deep blue. How good would that feel?
In the right deck. Look, the thing about Flesh and Blood that I love is that it does seem to have these cards, even outside of limited, seem to have a way to find a home eventually. There's heroes that love yellow pitch. There's now we have red pitch. We have 6 attack. We have 2 attack. We have 3 attack synergies happening. We have all sorts of cards across the spectrum that see a lot more use than in other TCGs, and I can appreciate that. Right, the blue pitch 3 block, right, is huge. So if you're doing, your blue, I was happy to see the unboxing, because looking at the previews, I was expecting all red cards and then ice cards, and then you were basically going to have Dramai and Phi look like the exact same deck for 25 to 30, 25 cards, and then one's going to have a dragon and the other is going to have a draconic ninja rupture attack of some sort, but everything else was just going to be draconic attacks looking for a combat chain, because you can do them on both. So I was super happy to see a lot more individualism in the heroes, in previously unpreviewed cards when they were open. So I was happy to see that. But if you were so non-majestic cards, take out the majestic cards. What are you looking for in a pack one, pick one? Here, obviously there's going to be some bombs here, but what you've seen from Uprising, is it equipment? Are you looking at one of these Quell pieces of equipment? Quell seems really good in limited. Is equipment in Flesh and Blood just a snap if it's the right one, or are there other elements at stake here for a pack one, pick one scenario?
My initial take is I think Quell is going to be very important in this format. So if I saw Quell, I'd most likely take it.
Yeah, I think on like pack one, pick one, unless there's some ungodly bomb, like I'm trying to think of what. Unfortunately, I don't know the Draconic or the Uprising card pool quite well enough yet. But like short of a legendary or the Fable, I think I'm picking equipment for pack one, pick one.
Yeah.
Just because equipment is so much scarcer than playables and good equipment.
Yeah, and I think that's week one for sure. Or maybe month one. In 4 months when we're drafting this, we get a little spicy and we start taking things that we want to do earlier. But when trying to win, figure out the format, I think those Quells are going to be pretty sought after. I can't even think of a whole lot of Majestics I would take off the top of my head. I guess there's a couple cool generic ones.
But also
VPOX I was looking at.
And then Uprising, the card is probably worth taking first.
Yeah.
From what I remember.
Definitely. I'm hoping to draft triple tomes of Bombardment here. That's what I want. I'm gonna just have that in every deck from now on, is try to get triple tomes of Bombardment. So we're ready to draft. We're gonna break down cards in our respective mediums coming up here. Both of you are in Vegas. Tommy, team calling Blitz. Who are you playing with, and what are you playing? If you are so bold to reveal that information.
I don't know. It's such a secret. I'm playing Levia. And I'm with Logan from Flesh and Pod, and a bud from the Buzz Discords. His name's Anthony, Salty Sea Cat in Discord. And And I'm just there to have fun. I would love to win some games, but we might even have a Genus What You Need on our team.
No.
Oh God!
Who knows what's going on?
Oh no!
That's amazing.
I mean, it's not confirmed.
Oh,
but but if you see us at a table,
oh man. Oh, okay. All right. This took the wind out of my sails. Outside of Yorick, Genus, bane of my existence.
I wish Yorick was tournament legal. Oh, I would have so much fun playing Yorick.
Terrible card.
I would build a deck just out of D-reacts and attack reactions, and I would just capitalize on whatever they put in the deck. I think it'd be hilarious.
I have a friend that is obsessed with Genus, has a UPF and Blitz Genus What You Need, is convinced that it is, he knows it's janky as crap, but apparently it's got OTK potential in it. He uses a bunch of potions and a slogism combination of some sort, but he makes it work, and he kills people unexpected. Maybe it is expectedly at this point, but Gina, I can't get behind merchants right now. That's all right. So how do you feel about Levia in the current meta right now in Blitz? Have you've jammed some games? How do you feel about her right now?
To be honest with you, in the most recent skirmish season I was on Oldham, I just wanted to go back to my roots here and play Scab Skins and Blood Rush Bellows and Dread Screamers, and this is true of Levia in all of the formats that you can play her. I think she has the heat. It just has to come together. That's really all it is. It's like, that's the inherent variance in the deck. So hoping it comes together, and I'll be in Vegas. So if it doesn't, it stays there. So that's nice.
That was too clever. All right, Adam, you are also going to Vegas. What is your team composition looking like, and what are you playing, if you'd like to divulge that information?
Yeah, I think at this point I'm happy to share that. The team composition part, I'm happy to share that regardless. That's going to be me, Oliver Chen, who top aided Canadian Nationals, and then his good friend Christopher Eng, who's I haven't met Chris yet, but I guess Chris is quite the rules aficionado. So I'm excited for our team. I am going to be playing Kano.
Shocker.
How do
you feel about Kano right now?
I actually feel really good.
Excellent.
I think even at first when Kano lost Snapback and lost Stir, I thought, Kano's been neutered. But the reality is Aether Wildfire is a very, very, very potent card. And it is not hard to deal 20 damage in Blitz with the Aether Wildfire. So the deck really only has the one win con, but I think it's a reliable enough one that it can go the distance.
What about your compatriots? What are they on?
So Oliver, I believe, is playing Oldham, and Chris, it looks like we're gonna be. I think he's fielding Rhinar, so we're going for the big three. I think you can. I think you can refer to Rhinar, Kano, and Oldham as the big three in Blitz right now.
Yeah. How do you feel about Kasai in the format right now? Is that number 4, or is it really kind of shuffle those 4 around
I think Kasai is probably number 4. I don't think Kasai is as good as people think she is. The reality is you don't, like, the moment you remove her ability, or you shut down her copper generation, it really shuts off blood on her hands, and
that's enough to take her out.
Yeah, for me at least. I haven't played a ton of Kasai, I won't lie. But from the little bit I have played of really just any warrior in Blitz, it just doesn't feel like warrior has the gumption to go the distance. Like warrior's got a lot of tricks up their sleeves, and if you're not ready to play into a warrior, they will wreck your day. But the moment you know what you're doing into warrior, I think the deck becomes a whole lot less potent. And I don't think Kasai's got the legs to go the distance.
Gumption is a solid word. I'll give you credit for gumption. All right, excellent. Well, I wish you both the best of luck in Vegas. I hope you have a good time. I hope you stay hydrated. Make sure you wear your sunscreen. I hope you see some celebrities at the pool party. Tell Matt Folks and Tarek that I said hello. When you see them.
Is Matt Folks in Vegas? Do we know that?
No, you know what? Maybe he's in Madrid. Maybe he's doing
that would make more sense. That's a little closer to home for him.
But if you do see him, say hello for me. I do think there's a couple Tarek Patel,
Tarek,
recent guest of our podcast, soon to be guest on the Fresh and Buds podcast.
Possibly in Vegas.
If
it goes Tarek's way, sounds like so.
I tell you what, that man is not afraid to interview. He just get whatever the situation is. He is clearly demonstrated the ability to just say, "Screw it, let's talk flesh and blood." Well, what am I doing? I'm pretty sure he locked himself in a closet away from his dog for an hour and a half so that we could talk to him, and that is an admirable thing to do. It was very clear, and he was ready to give it all away until we talked him off the ledge about the gold cold foil there, but he was ready. He was just it was great conversation. Super. Can't say enough good things about him and his thoughts on the game. That'll be a good one for you. So why don't we take this opportunity to tell me and the audience and the world here what you got coming up. Plug your stuff, Tommy.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much. This was fun. Now, you guys I can call both of you good friends at this point, which is awesome. And I'm glad to have gotten to know you, and I'm glad that we get to hang out so much, at least in the online sphere, and hopefully more in person going forward. But this was fun, and any chance to get on my soapbox about limited, I will take. Or anything flesh and blood, to be honest. But you can find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod. My podcast is Fresh and Buds. Both of these fine gentlemen have been on it, and they will be on it again at some point. And I talk about anything flesh and blood, whether it's getting deep into some meta stuff or just talking lore with people like Dead Summer Art and stuff like that. So, you can find me there, Fresh and Buds on YouTube, Spotify. It's audio, so Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get it. And then there's the Discord, the Buds, that both these fine gentlemen are also in. We hang out, we jam games, and talk all kinds of nonsense as well. So, yeah, that's all wherever my links are, my link tree on my Twitter. So, yeah. Thank you guys.
We will be throwing a bunch of your links down on the description when this comes out. And once again, we are Buds. We're part of the Bud Network, and it is a testament. Is what I was looking for way earlier in the conversation. It is a testament to your cultivation of the community. You are one of the flesh and blood pillars of the community. You've helped bring people together, and you are one of the people that have helped other content creators rise up with you. Your openness to allow us into your house and others around you, and we can't help but to gravitate towards you, and you're just we're happy you're on our side.
I appreciate
it's good
that.
to have you.
it's what it's all about. It's just like the buds, like friends and stuff. So it's just like that's what it's all about, guys. You know, it's play some games with my buds.
I do like that the more, because you're growing, you're getting out there more and more people are questioning the title and whether or not it's about. I get a kick out of it every time. I just hear like, I could have sworn this was about one thing, but it's about friendship. It's about friendship, guys.
I swear.
Yeah. We're just really good friends, man. But thank you guys. Thank you for coming on. We should plug our stuff as well.
Yes.
So you can find us on YouTube at the Combat Chain YouTube channel. We've been posting Blitz Primer videos. I just put up once again. I just posted Dorinthia. You can see a deep dive into Briar Blitz. There you can see a much abbreviated version of that Briar deep dive as well. I am planning one more, if I can get it out, on Bravo Blitz, so that people have some different deck ideas coming into Vegas here. So I am trying to pump one more out there. So find us on the Combat Chain YouTube channel. You can find us streaming wherever you stream your audio podcasts. You can find the Combat Chain at the Combat Chain on Twitter. You can find me at Pat Smash Good. And Adam, where can we find you?
At Farm Toolery TCG.
Oh yeah. All right, Tommy. We have one last thing, and it is the outro. So I am going to say until next week, and we're all going to say together, we're closing the Combat Chain. All right?
Hey.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for listening, and I think that's going to do it for us. So until next week, we're closing the Combat Chain. Oh God, it's beautiful. It's just like poetry slam, just smooth jazz in my ears the whole time.
I love it. It's great. I love it.
Fantastic.
Thank you guys. Thank you. That was fun.